myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. It feels alright.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Thursday night means it's me, Malcolm and Gibbo. Good evening, lads.
Hi, guys.
Evening, Steve. Hiya, John.
Hi,
Good
mate.
to see you, lads. Last live show before Santa comes. Just for those of you who tune in on a regular basis for Supermac and Gibbo, January the 5th will be the next live one. But we'll have recorded a couple of fantastic shows for you to watch over the Christmas period. So check out the England games with John and Malcolm did a couple of weeks ago. And Gibbo's top 10 sporting stars to come over the festive period. So plenty
Great
of
stuff. Yeah.
plenty
And Steve,
Yeah.
Santa's still coming, is he?
He's still going to
I
come.
thought he came and gave us that goal against Bournemouth.
Well, let's talk about it, Malcolm. Let's talk about it. Newcastle United through to the quarterfinals by the skin of their teeth, Mal.
Oh, by the skin of their teeth. And I heard a couple of people criticising Bournemouth, and I thought, no. They were so well organised. They always looked as if they were going to struggle to score, but I thought they were so well organised at the back and in midfield and what have you. More on the defensive side than anything else, but it was very effective. Made it hugely difficult for Newcastle, who just weren't playing well at all. They really weren't, somebody said to me after the game, well, it looked to me, he said, as if the World Cup players, they were much more in the mood for it than those who didn't go to Qatar. And I thought about that, and I thought, I'm not so sure whether you're right. Although that 2 or 3, Trippier fine, Bruno fine, yeah, there was a lot of players seriously lacking, and I wonder what do you put it down to? They've had a good old rest. They've had a couple of games to keep them warm and going. Bournemouth have suffered in pretty much the same way without games, and yet they looked much more alive and up for it than Newcastle did, I thought.
Gibbo?
Well, don't agree totally, but I thoroughly get the message. I mean, first and foremost, we won the last time out on penalties and this time out on an own goal, and I couldn't give monkeys, because when the draw's made for the quarterfinals tonight, guess who's in the draw? Oh, it's Newcastle United. I hope we'll continue to do that all the way to Wembley. And if we win the League Cup with an own goal at Wembley, I'll say that'll do for me, Matty. Get it on the bus and get it round St. James's Park and down the big market, etc., etc. I'll settle for that. And I'm going to say something that'll be really interesting to Mal. This will be particularly interesting to Mal because when it happened, when we got the goal that got us through against Bournemouth, my mind immediately went back. And you know why it went back? Because it was an omen. Because the only time Newcastle United have appeared in a League Cup final at Wembley, in the quarterfinals, Newcastle won 1-0 at home to Notts County with
Notts County.
Malcolm MacDonald threw a long throw in, and Eric
from the left,
the county goalkeeper, fumbled it into his own net.
He punched it, didn't he?
Yeah.
He came and punched it straight into his own net. It was quite spectacular.
Newcastle United won, Notts County 0. We went to Wembley. Newcastle
I still got my arm up, John. I'm trying to claim it, but they wouldn't let me have it.
Well, they should have done. You would have got an assist these days. You would have got.
Yeah, you certainly would have done, wouldn't I?
But hey, you set up like Wilson did by the challenge. You set up a 1-0 and we went to Wembley. We've never been back to Wembley in the League Cup. We were 1-0 with an OG at St. James's Park 1 round earlier. than when it happened with you in December 75, right to the month. It was December the 3rd, 75, because I looked it up in my record book when I got home. And if that's an omen and we're going to go back to Wembley, that'll do for me, big man. Because at the end of the day, in cup ties, nobody remembers how you got there, you know. They all remember just that you were there. Nobody has ever said to me down the passage of time, aye, but you only beat Notts County 1-0 at home with an own goal. I don't think anybody remembered that happened. We were just at Wembley. And by the way, the next round, we had Spurs home and away in the semi and beat Spurs. So we beat a top club. But yeah, so we're there. And if Bournemouth want to look in tonight at the end of the Man City-Liverpool game and watch the draw live, they'll find they're not in it and we are, you know.
Exactly. Mal, what did you make of ASM? We'd spoken about him last week, and you know we've said this is going to be a pivotal second half of the season for him, but also a pivotal second half of the season for us, because we need him to put the performances in. We need to see him, we need to see him raise his game a little and perform to the best of his ability. I didn't think he looked too bad when he came on, and I think he probably pushes the argument forward that he's probably best starting on the bench as an impact player, because he did change the game.
Yes, probably so. The first thing I noticed about Saint-Maximin when he came on, he had a big bandage on his left thigh. And within 10 minutes, it was off and removed. What was it doing there in the first place is my question. Why has he got it on? He comes out, he nearly every game, he's wearing bandages all over him. It's almost as if he's actually carrying out his excuse for not doing well on his person. And when somebody's behaving like that, they have to really earn my trust, and he's not doing it at the moment. I'll ask you both 2 questions, and you've heard them before. How many crosses did he get in the box? How many shots did he have at goal?
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. I just think
that's how dangerous he was.
Look, I can't argue with that, Mal. I can't argue with those
but that's
stats.
what it comes down to, Steve. Seriously, with attacking players, that's what it comes down to. The same. You look at Wilson. He didn't offer anything at all. Had a dreadful game. So it doesn't matter what else you do if you don't actually do that final act of getting a cross in or getting a shot in. You're having a stinker. And for me, Saint-Maximin, for all the ball that he had, and he had loads of it from the time that he came on, loads and loads of it, if he's not going to shoot and he's not going to score, and he's not going to cross, rather, then giving him the ball is a waste. Because he's not going to pass it back to a Newcastle player. I think I saw him do that twice in the time that he was on. The rest of the time, he finishes up running up his own backside, or the ball goes out of play, or he loses it. Okay, I know that there were 2 men on him, but he's got to learn how to deal with that, because that's going to be his future. He is going to have two people come and mark him at times. But all good forwards have that, and they have to learn how to deal with it, and so that it doesn't finish up causing them to become negative. They've still got to be on the positive side of it all, and Saint-Maximin, I don't think he's not dealing with that for the simple reason that he's not dealing with himself. He's not dealing with himself because he's not getting the best out of himself. Has somebody given him a whole list of what they want from him out on the pitch? And at the bottom of that list, in big letters, forget everything else. Just read the above, and that's what we want from you. And and it should be getting to the dead ball line, getting crosses in, coming inside, in getting a shooting position. How many shooting positions do you think that he ignored around the edge of the box and just a bit inside against Bournemouth? Because I counted at least 9, and he didn't get one single shot in.
So Gibbo, you have the opportunity to go second, which sometimes is beneficial because you get a chance to read the comments that people are putting things.
Well, I haven't been reading the comments because I've been watching Malcolm. But I mean, I disagree with me dear friend. I think Saint-Maximin did okay. He got a couple of people off the seat when the game was dying on its backside, and I thought
John, how about putting centre halves and fullbacks on their seat?
I'll tell you,
he's not doing it.
Well, I'll tell you something. I mean, the game was strangely dead at times, flat. I mean, crowd-wise, and that could be because in the final third we weren't great. You know what I would do at Leicester? I would play Saint-Maximin. And move Joe Linton back into midfield to where he made his name, because he didn't make his name at centre forward.
He played poorly.
He made his name. Well, tell me who didn't really. But I would play Saint-Maximin left side, Almiron right side. Wilson didn't play well, but we wouldn't drop him at Leicester, would we? I would put Saint-Maximin in, and I would move Joe Linton back into midfield for Joe Willock, because he made his reputation in that place. He's done okay on occasions playing out there wide left, but the physicality that he's got is not needed greatly in a winger. It's needed in a more central position. And I think when he's thrown in the mix of midfield, he can dictate things that much more alongside Bruno, and you've got Longstaff to do the dirty work. The dirty knees work, and so I thought Saint-Maximin did okay. I think he's looked to improve on over a period of time since he was out injured. And the last game he started at Newcastle night before this, he ripped Manchester City to bits, man.
Yes, he did.
To bits. There's no question. So the good thing about football is different opinions, which is why I love the times when Mal and I can have different opinions, because so often we've got the same opinion, rightly or wrongly. But I would place Saint-Maximin at Leicester. I think he's ready to start a game. When is he going to start a game? At some stage, we've got to decide he starts a game and has a future at this club, or he's another Ryan Fraser who hasn't played since the beginning of October, and that was as a sub, and we forget about him and sell him in January. I would play him at Leicester.
Interesting. Causes massive debates as well in the chat. Lots of people having their opinions about ASM. ASM was our main threat under Steve Bruce, under Eddie Howe. He's become overshadowed by our signings and their quality performances, says Alan Little. He's no Jinky Smith, says, would I there? Blue Rhythm Boy says, I agree. He's not at his lethal best, but he was no worse than anyone out there against Bournemouth. And ASM is brilliant 1 game in 6. Is that enough? Does that make him irreplaceable to the side? Says Nick M. And John Askew says, is Maxi not an Eddie work in progress? Before the injury, he was changing his game for the better. Ian says, I agree, Supermac. If you put ASM's skill with Murphy's application and attitude, you'd have a world-class player. He needs to lose the attitude. Wayne reckons that ASM changed the game against Bournemouth. John says it's a sign of the times when Maxi struggles to get a shirt. And Blue Rhythm Boy says, persevere with Maxi. I watched his highlights against Manchester City earlier. He's class on his day. He's unplayable, in fact. And Trolls simply says, I think you're wrong, Supermac, when it comes to ASM. So lots of different opinions. And it's 50-50. And Wayne says he's not disagreeing with you, Malcolm. He says, I'm counting it for the cup game. He says, you're a legend. Only person to score 5 goals for England. Thanks, mate.
Sure. And with Saint-Maximin, I'm not saying that he's a bad player, anything like that. But I do think that he gives credibility to the wrong things within his game. That he He wants to go on mazes. The number of times, and I've seen him doing this now for over 2 years, where he happily goes past one defender after another on the edge of the opposing box, and he never looks to just duck inside the box, get a shot in, get a penalty, knock somebody else in. Don't see him doing it, and so his priorities are wrong. He goes out on the pitch, and he should be sent out every game. They should. At the start of the season, the coaches and what have you, they should give Saint-Maximin targets. Right, want you to score 12 goals this season. Now, if you think about it, 12's it. Considering that he's an out-and-out forward, albeit a wide forward, 12 ain't overdoing it. But you're a winger. You should be getting crosses in, and you're not. So we want you to make at least 18. And see how he responds to that. Because running across the edge of the box isn't going to score a goal, and it isn't going to make a goal. What it's doing is it's just making Saint-Maximin, for me, look an idiot. I want to see him looking a really top quality player with those skills that he's got.
I look at what Newcastle United have got at the moment, and things can change because you suddenly go and sign a world-class player in a particular position and things change. But I look at what Newcastle United have got at the moment when I'm sitting here, and I think, who do I personally, I mean, I can only speak for myself, want to play in that left side position in the Newcastle team? I don't want it to be Joe Linton, because I think he can do a good job, but I think he does a better job in the middle of the park. So I want Joe Linton to play in the middle of the park. So it's not Joe Linton. I don't want it to be Fraser, because I think he's yesterday's news. I think he's finished at Newcastle. His body language is atrocious. He wants away. He's let down people in the past, including Eddie Howe at Bournemouth, when Bournemouth were relegated and Eddie Howe got the sack.
Yes.
And
I let him down.
I don't want him. And Murphy, I think, is the nearly man. He's nearly the best this, he's nearly the best that. He's got a bit of everything, but he hasn't produced anything. He's been here a long time, and he's never pulled up trees consistently. He's promised to, I look as if I could do that the next game, and then I look as if I'll do that the next game, but never does. And so
does it for Scotland.
Sorry?
He does it for Scotland.
I'm talking about Murphy.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Sorry, I thought you were still on with...
I'm talking about Murphy, Mal.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
I don't know who I would want at Leicester in that left-sided role ahead of Saint-Maximin. I'm not suggesting that we can't get better players. Of course we can. I mean, we've only lost one game all season, but if we've signed Maddison, we've got a better player than we've got at the club already. So every team can be improved, including ours. But as things stand, and it's just a matter of opinion, I would play him.
Yeah. But he's got to go out with a different attitude, John. He's got all the skills in the world. He's got some fabulous skills. Use them to do the most important things in the game.
I tell you what, though, man.
Score goals, make goals.
When I look back on the match against Bournemouth, at one stage, and you two guys might recall it or you might not, he got away down the left, he looked up, he rolled the ball across the goal to Wood, who was standing totally and utterly on his own, with only the flag went up about 10 minutes later, as it happened, but he was completely in between the sticks, Wood, and there wasn't anybody within 10 yards of him, any side at all, and with just the keeper, who was shrinking in size because he thought, I'm picking this out the back of the net. And he knocked the bloke's cap off in the second back row if they stand behind the goal. The shot, it didn't skim the crossbar. I thought it was Johnny Wilkinson doing his drop kick when he won the World Cup in Australia.
Yeah.
And he didn't know he was offside. Now, that ought to have been in the back of the net, game-setting match if you hadn't been off. And that was rolling a guy in. It was a terrible thing. And I'm not picking on Wilson, who's not my favourite player. It just happened to be Wood, I mean. It just happened to go to Wood. And that's what he did. So, you know, yeah, I think it's fascinating. And by the way, at the end of the day, come Leicester, goodness knows what Eddie Howe will do, because and what he does is all right by us, because he's lost one game out of 18. If you include the 3 League Cup ties, he's lost one game out of 18, so he's not getting selections that much wrong. But doesn't he do surprising things, guys, which I find fascinating. I look forward to the team sheet now just to be amazed. I mean, if you take the Spanish side that were played, you know, Malcolm, the Spanish side were played in the friendly, there was 9 subs and we didn't know the name of one of them. They were all kids. He named the first team that was quite a strong first team against the Spanish side, and 9 subs were all kids from the juniors. Then we go out against Bournemouth, and everybody had talked about the Liverpool lad, Karius, making his debut in goal after doing well in Saudi, and Wood would be playing centre forward because we hadn't seen Callum Wilson since he'd come back from the World Cup, etc. Then he produces the strongest team it's possible to pick at that moment, with Pope in goal, not the Liverpool boy, with Callum Wilson centre forward, not Wood. He does that. Now, he doesn't like changing a winning side unless it's forced upon him through injury. So, and he's a big fan of Willock. He's kept playing Willock. I mean, I'm suggesting put Joe Linton into midfield for Willock. He's a big fan of Willock. He might well go with Willock. He might go with an unchanged team because we won against Bournemouth, albeit with an own goal. I don't know. I'm just talking about what we would do. But I tell you what, I get as much entertainment, Malcolm, when I get the team sheet an hour before the game to say, good God, look what's happened there, and who's doing this, and who's there, and who's elsewhere. It is fascinating, because I will guarantee you there'll be a surprise, even if it's on the bench. There'll be a surprise somewhere along the line. Either changes have not been made, or they have, and there's a surprise. The Bournemouth team, guys, you must agree, Steve, thinking of it as a fan, when you got the team sheet to play Bournemouth, I bet you were surprised that every single first-team player was in the starting lineup for a League Cup tie, where normally the load is spread.
Couldn't believe it, mate. We couldn't believe it. Malcolm and I had just done the talking, and Malcolm had headed to the ground when the team came out. And yeah, fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Exactly
great,
the same.
Great all the same from our perspective to see Eddie Howe taking it seriously. It tells you he is taking it seriously as well. We've got a few questions coming in, lads, so I'm going to move it on, and I'm not going to defend Chris Wood. I can't defend that shot. Blue Rhythm Boy says, come on. No, Blue Rhythm Boy in the chat asked me, come on, dive in, stick up with Chris Wood. I'm afraid I couldn't defend the indefensible. That was a poor shot by the lad at the weekend, and that's just the way it is. Malcolm, I was asked a question in the pub, and before I forget, you weren't there, you'd left. A guy at the bar, forgive us, I can't remember your name, mate, but I have remembered your question. He said, when you were a manager, Malcolm, how did you manage to get Ray Houghton on a free transfer?
Yes. Yeah, very interesting. Now, there had been a little bit of a whisper coming out of West Ham at the time that John Lyle, the manager of West Ham, was going to let one of his central midfield players go between Ray Houghton and it was the lad who eventually went to Chelsea. He was a bit knock-kneed. And I thought that he was the one that Lyle would let go. Now, somebody in Fulham had a very good friend who worked in the FA at the time. Now, this is a long time back, so I think I can freely mention it. And I was given the whisper that it might well be Ray Houghton that was being given a free transfer. And so I thought, well, I'm not hanging around. I'm not waiting, because once the list is printed, they leave it 3 days at the FA to ensure that everything goes out at the right time. It's all enveloped and what have you, all first class stamped, and then boom, it can all go into the post box and away equally. And this is to all 22 clubs. Well, in fact, it goes to the whole Football League, all of the clubs, all 92. They all get, because it's not just who the first division players are letting go, but also the second, third, and fourth. And it's a very comprehensive list. It's called the retain and transfer list. And so I had the heads up that it was Ray Houghton that was getting the free transfer. So I took the chance and I phoned John Lyle. It was a lovely guy, real gentleman. And I introduced myself over the phone, and I said, John, forgive me for calling you. I said, but look, a little birdie has told me that Ray Houghton might be getting a free transfer. Would you mind letting me know, is that right or wrong? He said, how do you know? I said, I told you, a little birdie has just mentioned that there is this possibility that Ray Houghton might be getting a free. So he sort of melted a little bit. And he said, I'll be quite honest with you. He said it was a really difficult decision to make between my two young central midfield players, and I decided that I would let Ray Houghton go. He said the other fella is very much a West Ham type player. So I said, so Ray Houghton's got a free transfer. I said, you know the player very well. I said, do tell me, he doesn't drink, does he? He doesn't stay out late at nights, does he? He said, no. He's a great pro. He's really well behaved. And he said, and I'll tell you what, he said, I'll be really honest. He said, you are the perfect fit for him at Fulham. The way you play, you are the perfect fit. He'll do brilliantly for you. I said, well, tell him to come over. He said, all right, I will. Who's paying for the taxi? I said, we'll pay for it when it arrives. So anyway, it was all the way across London, which is a hell of a trek midweek. And so he's arrived in the afternoon. And so he was sent to my office by the receptionist. And then he came, and I sat him down, and I said, right, I introduced myself and talked to him about the club, and we'd just been promoted from the third division to the second division, and our talks were that they were really positive, and I said, and you, I can see with a really key role. I said, I've had Peter Sullivan playing left side of midfield. I said, but Peter's getting on a bit in age. And I said, the deal with him was that if he can get us promoted last season, he can then move on. And we were promoted. So I said, I'm happy for him to move on. And I want you here as his replacement. He said, so I go into the first team. I said, you go straight into the first team. he said, and I play where? I said, you play left side of midfield. I know you're right-footed. I said, and it's breaking one of my rules, but I've got so much faith in you as a player that I'm happy to put you left side of midfield. Right, he said, what kind of terms are you offering? I said, there's a contract. It was all filled out. I was almost trebling his West Ham wage. And he just looked and he said, have you got a pen? And he just signed it. And he didn't realise that he hadn't looked at how long the contract was for. But anyway, he was more than happy. And so I shook hands with him and I said, congratulations. You're going to enjoy it here. I said, we're a fun club to be at. I said, I'm going to ring down to the dressing room. I said, the season's finished, so the players are all getting showers and hot baths and what have you, and massages. And I said, if you drive home quickly and get a suitcase packed, I said, you can join us on the flight to Trinidad and Tobago tomorrow morning. How's that? Oh, really? I said, yeah, really. He said, oh, great. So I said, right, I'm going to get somebody to take you downstairs, introduce you to all the other players. So the club captain at the time was Les Strong. So I phoned down and I said, somebody send Les Strong up to my office, please, immediately. So up comes Les, and I said, Strongy, I said, this is our new signing, Ray Houghton, West Ham. And I just saw him look at Ray Houghton, look back at me, and he just made a face, and I knew I had signed an absolute winner, a winner with all the players. So I said, take him down, introduce him to everybody. I said, and he's going to be joining us on the plane tomorrow. Will do, boss. So they've left my office and they walked down the corridor and then come the stairs to go down the side of Craven Cottage. And he's talking away to Ray Houghton, asked him a couple of questions. And he said, Ray, we're a really friendly club here. We like everybody to be really happy. We like everybody to be really content with everything and feel well fitted to the place and to the team and what have you. He said, so never be afraid if you need a change or if there's something you want. He said, you just ask. He said, oh, and also he said, we'd like everybody to be really comfy. So are there any nicknames that you don't like? And Ray Houghton said, because he was Scottish, although he played for the Republic of Ireland, that was his parents that got him into that side, but he was actually Scottish from Glasgow. And Ray Houghton said, he said, I don't like being called sweaty sock jock. So I don't like sweaty at all. So I said, Les said, you leave that with me. I'll make sure that you're more than settled in here. So he's got into the dressing room and he said, lads, he said, I want you to come and meet our new signing from West Ham. He said, here he is. And Ray Houghton came through the door and Strongy said, this is Sweaty. And he was just known as Sweaty from then on, still is to this day. I remember, absolutely brilliant, great attitude.
What a player, Malcolm! I saw him,
was fabulous player.
Went on to Liverpool, and funny enough, when I went to cover the World Cup in America, because England hadn't qualified, and so they said go with Jack Johnson, Geordie in charge of the Republic of Ireland. In the historic first game they played over there that I was at the stadium was against Italy. who
Yeah.
were the great World Cup side with a huge, huge history. In the Republic of Ireland, little Jack Johnson side, well, big Jack, little side, won 1-0, and Houghton scored the goal that
That's right.
they beat Italy. And terrific player. Happy
He
days.
was, yeah.
But
And
now,
John, now I'm sure you might well remember this, that when I brought the the Fulham side to Newcastle in a league match in Division 2.
I have no wish to remember this because we got hammered.
Right. Well, and this was, of course, Ray Houghton's first season playing left side of midfield. And I think we were winning about 2-1. And Ray Houghton got the ball about 5 yards inside the Newcastle half, looked up, saw the keeper off his line and went bang. And he just completely bamboozled the keeper, and it just dropped underneath the bar and made it 3-1. What a goal it really was! Absolutely fantastic.
Can't remember that at all. Can't remember the result.
No, would you like me to tell you about the first, the second, and the fourth, John?
Well, now we're going to come up to the ad break, John and Malcolm, because I don't want to hear about another defeat either.
It was an absolute fluke, that shock, by the way, as well. So that's the end of that. Get the ads on.
Yeah, they go. A big thanks to all our sponsors. First off, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. And thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces. They are handmade in Cumbria, and you can find more information out on their website, mrvickies.co.uk. And if you want to order any, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to Blowhole Brewery, a new beer made on Tyneside. The cans are all designed in the colours of Newcastle United strips from days gone by. Black and white there, the purple and blue, and the good old-fashioned blue from the Entertainers' days. But get more information on the Blowhole Brewery range, such as Geordie Juice, from blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things and video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who do our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the show, then all you need to do is click the subscribe button below. You can also hit the thumb up, which does us a favor, by liking the video, and click share to your social media, such as Twitter and Facebook. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify and the rest. And if you want to contribute to the show, use the QR code. It takes you straight to the membership pack and you can join the channel. What do you get for your membership pack? You get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. You can also make a donation by hitting the $sign in the chat tonight. We also give you something for free if you subscribe to the show. To get your car sticker, email john@nufcmatters.com and he will post you one out. We also support the food bank on this show. And if you want to make a virtual donation to the food bank, then go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. On our website, we've got lots of t-shirts, cups, pens, you name it, memorabilia, if you want to buy it and support the show. For Christmas, we have the Bruno Christmas jumper, which is selling rather well. And we'll have the bobble hats, Play Like Almiron, Bruno's Magic, and Bruno's 39 and Joe Linton's J7. Get yourself to nufcmatters.com to buy them today. If you want to buy people a ticket for one of our events next year, we've got an evening with Steve Howe, which is Friday the 24th of February at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £50 from nufcmatters.com or newcastlelegends.com. And you can also buy them on voucher before Christmas. Get somebody a bargain and a nice Christmas present. Peter Beardsley is on the 10th of February at St. Dom's Catholic Club in Newcastle. Tickets available direct from the venue. And for this one, Friday the 2nd of June next year at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth, 6:30 start. An evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark, and John Beresford. To book tickets, contact Natalie at heelandtour.org.uk or visit their website, heelandtour.org.uk/events. If you're looking for a Christmas present and people like a book, then get yourself NME from the Bender Squad to the Gremlins, or the last remaining copies of Black or White, No Grey Areas, Lee Clark's autobiography, and you can get them from www.badboysbooks.net. Just a question here which came in from Blue Rhythm Boy, interested in the lad's views on the continuing dressing room victory pictures. He says, I love them, but I've seen more criticism suggesting it's gone on too long. What's your thoughts on that, Mal? Newcastle United's club photographer Serena started this by taking photographs of the lads, and it has continued. And, every time they get a win, they get a dressing room photo. Good thing, bad thing? What do you think?
Why not? I'm sure that, so there's somebody here who's a bit of a complainant, but I'm sure there are others who absolutely love them.
Yeah, okay. That's
simple enough. And if they don't want it, delete it.
Simple question, simple answer. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's something that Eddie Howe started at Bournemouth, and you can understand that, because if you're with a small club and there's no disrespect meant there because they've done sensational as a club, they're Premier League club, they were almost going out the Football League not so many years ago, so what a rise that is. And with 10,000 gates, absolutely fabulous. But when you're with a small club and you're trying to get that camaraderie and get through the divisions and get into the top division, part of the togetherness, which Eddie Howe's hugely strong on, and that part is working magnificently here and did at Bournemouth, is this group photograph every time they won, which is one for all and all for one. And it's not just the team, and it's not just the team and the subs, but it's every member of the backroom staff, the physios, the coaches, everybody's on the photograph. I mean, at Bournemouth, there must have been more people on the photograph than there was in the crowd at times. But that was, and he brought that here to Newcastle, because if we remember, at Newcastle at the time Eddie Howe come in, it had been under the old regime and the old manager, and he felt that camaraderie had to be built up and cemented, and that's what he did. He instructed the official snapper to take.
Sorry, John, but this is Steve's impression of Sunderland.
I've just seen him. Yes, he's going lower and lower down the division there. I mean, he started off. His impression of Beresford when he was playing behind Ginola started off at 6'3" and ended up at 3'6". But that's how this thing started. And in the main, it was meant to be kept in house. It got out house because with social media, it is very difficult these days for things not to appear in public. It was meant for in-house, for the staff alone. It wasn't a thing to broadcast to the fans, but it come out there and it become a regular thing out there. And therefore, it's only going to take one person. If it's the 15th assistant physiotherapist that puts it online, then it's out there for everybody. And yes, I know where certain people are coming from, where they'll say it's outlasted its time. It's like taking the knee, isn't it? When that was first started, before games in this country, everybody was saying it was wonderful. And then when you get into the third season of taking the knee or whatever, people are saying, well, it was a wonderful idea, but it can't go on forever. When we clapped the nurses during coronavirus, there was the NHS, it was fabulous. But there was a period, and I think it was after 10 weeks, when we said this one next Thursday will be the last one, because you can have too much of a good thing. But this wasn't meant for public consumption. It was meant for private camaraderie. But these days, you can't keep everything off social media. So it is difficult. It certainly doesn't bother me. I would certainly prefer that than have a dressing room that's so disgruntled that the people on the right-hand side of the dressing room aren't speaking to the people on the left-hand side of the dressing room. And
and that's an awful situation to try and play a game of football under, John.
Absolutely, mate. And if they'd had it in the old days, the pitches would have been unique, because we only won once in every 12 games. But now we've now actually won 7 games on the bounce. So there's been 7 pitches from 7 games. So I can understand where people are coming from.
Steve Bruce wouldn't have joined in on the cuddles or anything like that. He was too busy cuddling his bank account.
Well, there was no cuddles because we didn't win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Tim says, do we have concerns regarding Isaac's medical issues, Malcolm?
I don't know the ins and outs of what it is. It is concerning.
I mean, he had to have surgery, Mal. I think for me, I'm comforted by the fact that we haven't tried to
recover from.
We haven't rushed him back.
I think Eddie Howe, from what we've seen of him so far, in this time that he's been with us, he is very, very cautious with injured players, and he wants them absolutely right before they're under consideration to come back into the side. And perhaps quite rightly so. I've seen far too many players rushed through over the decades. I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again because it really is so true about the game of football, professional football at the top. And it was Fred Street, the physio at Arsenal back when I was playing there, and he later became the physio with England for a number of years. And he said to me, I've decided to write a book. I said, oh, that's great, Fred. I said, have you come up with a title yet? He said, I have. He said, Fit for Saturday. He said, because that's the only question I ever get asked by the manager and coaches.
Is he fit for Saturday? Yeah.
Fit for Saturday.
I think the thing with Isaac, if there's a slight confusion, if I can understand where Newcastle United fans are coming from. They've got a £60 million signing. After only 3 games, he gets an injury and we don't see him for 3 months. Now, that can happen. We're told there's been a couple of little setbacks, etc., etc. You know what? And this is a very small criticism, but nonetheless, it's a fact. If we come clean right at the start and say, this fella's got an injury, it normally takes 3 months. It might take a little bit more. I'll keep you informed, etc., etc. Then everything is fine. But the lack of information we have got has created a situation where with social media these days, everybody goes into overdrive. In the old days, when Malcolm was playing, Joe Harvey was in charge. If I went up to see Joe Harvey, which I did every single day God sent, he would fill me in on the situation with injuries. And he would be honest. I'm not saying Newcastle aren't honest. They're not dishonest. They just don't give you any information. So every week, as weeks go on, you think Isaac will be back the next week, and then he isn't. And then he's not back the next week, and then he's not back the next week. Kill it its source. Tell it the way it is. Sure. Eliminate all the speculation, and then we'll get on with it. But these days, managers don't tell you anything. They say, somebody's injured, but I don't want to put a timeline on him coming back. And then that's the end of that. It's like pulling teeth. You have a job finding what the injury is. You have a job into a certain, and I agree. Don't tell the opposing manager the team you're going to play on Monday. But when you've got an injury, especially somebody you've bought for 60 million and he doesn't play for 3 months, put something out there. It eases the pressure on Isaac. It eases the pressure on Eddie Howe. It eases the pressure on the medical staff. Just tell it the way it is, so that all we're getting now is rampant social media speculating everything from his croc to what's happened to him, which legs falling off, and his left one or his right one. Let's kill all that, tell it the way it is, and get on with life. Newcastle and the modern day football club make their own problems by limiting information so much we haven't got an idea. When Isaac went out at the start, We had no idea that come January he still wouldn't be back. By the way, have we any idea how close he is to be back? How many setbacks he's had?
No, nobody knows, John. And in fact, there was a bit of a rumour going round prior to the Bournemouth game that there was a possibility that he'd be on the bench.
Well, absolutely, Malcolm. When he had this injury 4 weeks ago, there was a feeling that he would be introduced into that friendly in Saudi. He would then come and have 20 minutes against the Spanish side, and then he would go on the bench and go on against Bournemouth and maybe even start at Leicester. Nowhere near that, and we're told he's not quite near that, but we don't know how close he is or isn't. And until we know, and we, I mean spectators, I don't mean the press, but the press pass on the information to spectators. But let's kill it. Let's tell it that this guy was 60 million. He's the club record signing. He's been out after 3 games, and we still don't know if he's coming back. Leeds at home or a month's time. Well, that, to me, that is a nonsense, because that is asking for speculation, is it not?
It is, John. Yes, and I think it's unsettling in people's heads. Supporters.
Totally. By the way, it's not fair on his head, because everybody's now going round in Geordieland saying, "Is this fella a crock? Is this fella somebody that's permanently injured? Have we bought a duffer? Not on ability, because we know his ability, but on his ability to be fit." And when we've had these little things with Callum Wilson, let's not go down that road. Let's tell it the way it is, and that's fine. I don't mean in great detail, but let's put it in perspective. This business of we're living from game to game, or we're going to see him, and quite frankly, is nowhere near being seen at the moment, and hasn't been for 3 months.
Rob just asks a question. He says, "Can I ask Malcolm, why is Newcastle so close to your heart?"
They always have been. I had a wonderful 5 years here as a player. That I got on so well with all of the people of Tyneside, of Northumberland, and what have you, and everybody was so friendly and welcoming, and it was great. And that wasn't just to me, but my family and what have you. And so it becomes a special place in your heart. The people become very special in your heart. I went to Arsenal, but Arsenal, it's sort of spread all over London, and there isn't the intimacy there. It could take me sometimes 2 hours to drive there. It never took me more than 20 minutes to get from my home to the training ground or to the stadium, never more. There's an intimacy that Newcastle can offer that other sides can't. Plus the fact that I went away, I was playing for Arsenal, but there was always a contact constantly kept by the people of Newcastle. I moved on, became manager of Fulham, and when I came up as manager of Fulham to St James Park, the excitement beforehand, the welcome that I received in St James Park, and I shall never forget that moment when I walked out the tunnel, and it was a crescendo of noise, and not helped so much by the fact that we went out there and that was the 4-1 game, John.
We'll come back to that again.
I'm sorry, mate. This is a time of goodwill to all men, and you're not showing it tonight, pal. So we'll have less of that. Less of that. But I mean, on the subject of Malcolm.
But also, sorry, John, there was one more thing I was going to say, if you don't mind me butting in. And that is that I finished up doing the Legends program on Century Radio for 15 years. Now, for a radio program the last 15 years, it's got to be good, bloody good. And it was very, very successful. what was it that we based the whole program on? Humour. And so we got away with some outrageous things. But here on Tyneside, humour is king. You know, if you've got that right kind of humour, you can take it anywhere you go. You can take it to anything that you're talking about, and the Legends works so well here. Couldn't get it off the ground elsewhere in the country in the same format as we did. And I'm somebody I love finding the humorous aspects to everything. And
well, we're very good at laughing at ourselves, Malcolm. We've had to be when we support Newcastle United. But I mean, just in passing, and we're going because we're going to play Leicester. But so the biggest tribute to Newcastle United fans for their devotion, their loyalty, in thousands, without ever winning a trophy since '69 and '55 domestically, is that you look at the great players who played for Newcastle and are not Geordies, who have ended up living here. Moncur, who's a Scot, David Craig from Northern Ireland, Malcolm MacDonald, Jinky Smith from Scotland. All these people, Tommy Cassidy, an Irishman, have all ended up living here at the end of the game. You get Gutierrez and Colaccini from the other side of the world, always on about what a wonderful time they had here and that their memories are here. This club in this city, the city and the fans,
and the people, John. So important.
The city and the fans, the people, the Geordies have got that. And thank God we've got something, because we haven't had a football team for a while, but I think we might have one now again. That would be nice. Which leads us on, Stephen, I'm doing your job for you, to Leicester City on Monday.
Well, that's it. We've got 2 games, lads, until we next reconvene. So give us your predictions for Leicester on Boxing Day and Leeds on New Year's Eve.
Well, my thoughts are that this is going to be a really difficult game. I think Newcastle is still finding their legs after the long break. They're playing away from home against a side who were really struggling, but they seem to have sort of found a bit of a balance now, albeit the club, I think, is still in severe financial problems. But give the manager his due. He's sort of steadied the whole situation, and he's got them back out and playing. They're scoring goals now, and I think it's going to be one hell of a game. Newcastle are going to be really stretched to keep a clean sheet, and so they've got to work overtime for that, and they've got to be a damn sight livelier getting the ball into the box and what they do with it once it's inside than I saw against Bournemouth. So you want a score line. I will be quite happy if Newcastle come away with a 1-1 draw.
Okay. Leeds United on New Year's Day then, Mal, as well. And New Year's Eve, sorry.
Yeah, Leeds United. I don't think that they are quite in the same league as Leicester, to be honest. I think that this is one that Newcastle really seriously should win. Leeds will come bombing at Newcastle, and I think that will absolutely suit the back four that we have and the way it's organised. And if they keep squeezing like that, then Leeds are just going to be constantly running offside. And they're not the best at the back either. And I'll take Newcastle to win that one 3-0.
John, same question for you.
Leicester, I agree totally with Malcolm. It's much harder than we expect or would have been early in the season. Some very quickly, they lost 6 of their first 7 Premier League games and only drew the other one. They didn't have a win. Since that abysmal run, they've won 5, drawn 1, and lost only 2 of the next 8. They've completely turned the corner. On the other side, however, our stats are brilliant. 1 defeat in 18 games this season. That's League and League Cup. 1 defeat in 18 games. 7 wins on the bounce and unbeaten in the last 12. They are some set of dazzling figures.
Yes.
I would settle for a 1-1 draw, as Malcolm said. I think this is much tougher than people realise. I've got an uncanny vibe about it. I would settle for 1-1. I think that's probably what the result would be, but I can see us nicking it. I think it'll be much more comfortable against Leeds. Leeds aren't Leicester, nowhere near, and it's at St James's Park. I think we'll win 2-0 against Leeds. I'm hoping we'll nick it against Leicester. But if we draw, it's still only 1 defeat in 19, and then we'll go and beat Leeds. So it ain't
John,
all bad. The biggest
never knock an away point.
The biggest thing we've got to do is not lose. The biggest thing we've got to do with Leicester is not lose.
Yeah, good points. Well made, chaps. The question that I did keep, just John Johnson wanted to point this out, by the way. He says the second game against Fulham, we beat them 2-1 with us scoring twice in the last 5 minutes. Thanks for that, John. And somebody asked this earlier on, so this is just for fun, lads, just for fun. Blue Rhythm Boy, this is the last question of the night. Malcolm, your favourite Christmas song?
I think it's "Oh Come All You Faithful." It's sort of.
Oh, so you're going for a hymn? I think he meant something that you would hear on Top of the Pops.
Oh, Top of the Pops! I read it as
a hymn. Have you got a favourite Christmas record?
Carol. Oh, my favourite Christmas song. Do you know? I don't think I've got one. I've got to be honest.
Right, I'll jump in.
Do they think it's Christmas? Yeah.
Oh, he likes that one. Now that's controversial, of course, because people say that it's not a Christmas song. But I do like that one. Yeah, go on then, John.
Yeah.
Well, I like "We Are the Champions" by Queen. Not a Christmas song, but we will be the champions, and therefore I like "We Are the Champions," and that's what I'll be singing, whether it's Christmas or whether it's not. I'll tell you that right away.
I love
so I'm going for "We Are the Champions" because we will be. If we have a Chrissy one, I like "Driving Home for Christmas" by Chris Rea, which is a local Northeast boy. I think it's a terrific song. And when I go wacky and daft, because I've been in the big market at the Sherbet, I like belting out "Noddy Holder" and Slade.
There we go. So if you want to hear John singing Noddy Holder and Slade, get yourself to Pumphrey's on New Year's Eve at 12:30 before the Leeds United game, and him and John Anderson will be doing it in tandem. Me and Malcolm will be singing "Do They Know It's Christmas" at the Dog and Parrot. Have a great Christmas, lads. It's been fun in 2022. Looking forward to doing it all again in 2023.
Merry Christmas to you two guys, but also to your families and to everybody who tunes in to us.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we will be the champions.
Take care, lads. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.